Well done to both of them. I have some really stimulating points in those presentations. We'll now take some questions. See, they're flooding in on the spot from the floor. Yes, please.
Chris Manley, 2021 scholar. Really enjoyed your presentations. I think both very, very powerful, very, very important, very relevant. One observation and one question. I think actually to further enhance your message and connect with an audience, particularly the corporates, I think you need to think about that actually what is the reason that those businesses are doing what they're doing. So actually it's their customers, it's the people that are giving them the feedback that then they're actually taking the action. So, and also the people that work within those businesses now are actually they really do care as well. So I think when you present, think about actually it's not just the corporates, which comes a little bit across like them and us, even though you're not meant to do it. I just think about that in terms of enhancing your message. And then also as a question, I think there's a lot of confusion over what regenerative agriculture actually means, even within the farming community. And I think your setting up your business is really helpful. But I think how do we kind of clarify that term for farmers and then for everybody else that wants to make it happen?
So, sorry, just let the mic kick on. So the question is, how do we define regenerative agriculture for different audiences? Well, that comes down to how important you think it is to define the concept and the principle, and what is driving your desire to define it. So if I personally believe that one of the virtues of regenerative agriculture is that it doesn't have a fixed definition, and I actually think that the pursuit of a definition is distracting to its real potential for impact. Because what could be regenerative for me, I mean, ultimately the beauty of regenerative is that you measure it in outcomes. Ultimately, if I'm ploughing and doing all the things that would make some people in this room have a sharp intake of breath, but all of my outcomes are improved. I've improved soil health, I've improved water holding capacity, water infiltration, biological life in soils, then does it matter that I'm ploughing? So I think the approach is if you're pursuing a definition, I personally am not, I don't spend too much time worrying about is there a specific definition of it. I'm more interested in how do we prove it in such a way that works for farmers and doesn't greenwash. And when people say, define regenerative agriculture, I say, define organic.
I think from my point of view as well, I agree with what Alastair was saying, but also I think in terms of definition, in terms of why do we need to define it? What is that definition actually going to be used for? And absolutely echo with what Alastair was saying, is it's about the outcomes, it's about what you're achieving, and actually how you're doing it is what works for you on your farm.
Okay. Number 2, please. Up here, Campbell.
I'd like to firstly draw attention to the fact that Alastair, as far as I know, is the first third-generation Nuffield scholar presenting at conference. But that's probably lost to a lot of people as the deceased scholars are not in the guide anymore. But an excellent presentation and a wonderful tribute to the effects of Nuffield through the generations. I'd like to ask if you can see that obviously in your method of farmer engagement probably has a wider application to things other than regenerative agriculture, and I'd like to both speculate in other areas that approach could usefully be taken.
So I mean, this is, I think what we're both really talking about is how do you change behaviour? How do you change behaviour? And I'm talking about it because I think that changing behaviour is the surest way to achieve lasting outcomes. And behaviour change, there's loads of theories of behaviour change. One of the interesting parallels to look at is public health policy. So how do you get more people to wear seatbelts? Or how do you get people to social distance really rapidly during a COVID or a pandemic? How do you get people to wear face masks? And there are one of our scholars, I think it was Teresa, was talking yesterday about a methodology for behavior change and mindset change. And I think that once you have that, you really uncover, you unearth the ability to change your business. You know, if you start thinking about succession differently and believing in it, then you start investing in it. If you start believing and thinking about the importance of ethnic diversity or just general diversity in business, then it leads to change. It's just this difference between top-down and bottom-up approaches to change. So I'm sure it has very broad application to everything that we do. You know, how do I exercise? How do I force myself to exercise more?
I think when Alastair mentioned about Teresa's project, I think there's so much opportunity for us to work together in future, and it's the joys of Nuffield as to you get to hear what everybody else has been working on over the past couple of years, but actually there's a huge opportunity for the work that we do. So Alastair through his work, but I also look after agroecology, which is an information hub. But I've been really interested in Teresa's findings about the 5 different aspects that you need to be able to drive change, and really using her work to make sure that we're ticking all of those boxes through that project as well.
Great. We'll just go numerically. So number 3 up at the back, please.
1995 scholar. The message that you have given us this morning is quite clearly, to manage you have to measure. My questions are twofold. Are we all, as farmers, using the same metrics? And are there too many measuring tools stroke calculators?
Yes. I think...
Are we all measuring the same things, and are there too many measurements to be made?
I think what's happened, say for example, on-farm carbon measurements, there are so many different types of tool, but because there hasn't been any centralized decision in terms of the number one tool that's being used, everybody's kind of created other tools to fill the gap. And I think that there is an opportunity for the measurements that are being developed for on-farm to be sort of reviewed and perhaps streamlined. It wouldn't be easy because the problem is, say for example, if you're a dairy farmer, you might have been working several years in terms of carbon measurements on your farm using a particular metric, whereas on the other hand, someone might be measuring, using a completely different system. But the dairy farmer might not want to move to the other system because actually they've got years worth of measures and they don't want to throw that work away. So it's very difficult to work out, well, what's the right answer to that? But I do think that there is absolutely work to do, because I think there's, from my opinion and my experience, there's quite a bit of confusion about, well, what's the right thing to do? And that can lead to inertia, whereby everyone's waiting for the right sort of, the one central thing to come up, and it doesn't come. So then you're left on the back foot of not having done anything, and it's just this, a little bit of a mess. But I think that's maybe something for a future Nuffield scholar to look at as well. I don't know if you've got...
No, I agree with that. It's and everything that we're talking about here operates within a broader system. I'd say 3 things about measurement. The first is that I'm excited about the role that measurement can play in changing behavior, as opposed to just giving us the data out of the back end of it. So I think that it's a really valuable tool to get people to feel and appreciate and see their farms differently. The second thing about data is who is wanting it? Like, why are you measuring it? Because often I speak to startups and they're saying, we've got this great new technology, it helps you map the productive areas of your field and which bits are wet. And you think, well, I know which bits are wet because I walk it every weekend and I get stuck in the corner. You know, we've all got yield maps in the drawer. So I think there's too much data to be used there. And then in classic fashion, where you start out by saying there's 3 things, I've forgotten what the third is.
I'll add the third thing, right. Data ownership. As to every farmer owns their own data, and you've just got to be careful about who you're giving access to and what access you're giving as to who owns that data after it's left your hands as well.
Okay, number 4, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you both for your presentations. It's great that you're able to share those views with the 200 or so delegates that we've got here. As Nuffield scholars, your journey's actually only just beginning. And Lucy, you can't say, we'll leave it to another Nuffield scholar. You are now scholars, and it is your duty as scholars to get your message out to all the people in the decision-making environment that is food and farming. Alastair, you told us how big that is. How are you going to do that, and what are you going to do from today to make sure that that message that you've picked up and worked on so far is going to go out to the industry?
I'd like to say that I'm not sitting here passing the baton in terms of thinking it's someone else's job, just to make that perfectly clear from the start. For me and my work, I run the Organic Research Centre. I also run agroecology, which is, I already mentioned, is an information hub. But we're also developing agroecology to be able to start taking some of these messages out there to really be able to drive change. And I'm also chairing, or co-chairing, I should say, the Nuffield Regenerative Agriculture Group, to be able to work out, right, actually, let's canvass opinion, let's work out, right, what do we do next? Where is the need? Because you've got to make sure that you're marrying sort of the audience with the message to a certain extent as well, and working at the speed that the audience can work at. There's no point talking about something completely left field if everybody's focus is, sorry, that's right, if everybody's focus is over here. So it's about kind of really working that through together and working a plan and an action plan, but also the other thing that's really, really important for me is that there are so many different organisations springing up, doing all of this work. But it's a little bit inefficient because everybody's trying to do stuff. My work is for a charity, so I'm working in a genuinely altruistic way. I just want everybody to be able to access the information so that we can drive change. So I'm just like, if you want our information, have our information, go for it. Tell us what we can do to make things better, to make it more accessible. But equally, we have an action plan to put it out there too, so it's a bit of a two-way dialogue.
Thank you, Lucy. I'm afraid we're going to have to draw the question and answer session to a close. Clearly, there are a lot more questions than there is time for. I'd now like to present the scrolls to Lucy and Alastair. So, Alastair.